Welcome everyone, Costin here with a discussion about some of the hardest missions in Age of Mythology Retold. Starting with an honorable mention that doesn't quite necessarily make the cut, but is absolutely a very difficult mission on Titan difficulty. For all of these missions, I'm only talking about Titan difficulty, and that is Unlikely Heroes. The second underworld mission in the Norselands, and one of the final missions in the Norse part of the Fall of the Trident campaign. Now, what makes this mission particularly brutal is that Gargarensis will continuously send a lot of troops your way. Now, you can yourself get a lot of troops in this particular mission, but the problem here is that even though that's absolutely the case, sending them to actually fight the enemy armies that are spawning against you is a surefire way of getting a lot of them killed very easily. Because the AI has one really powerful unit at their disposal: trolls. And see, the problem with trolls, beyond the fact that they're sending things like mountain giants, fire giants, infantry, and jarls, but the particular problem with trolls in terms of using the troops that you have in this mission to combat enemy is really down to the fact that trolls have an AoE rock throw ability that they will use on a fairly regular basis. And because the enemy assaults are so very damn frequent, you will likely end up in a situation where you might kill an enemy wave and then the next one is going to instantly spawn to attack you, or you're not even finishing killing one particular wave before the next one spawns. Now, it does take some time to ramp up, so if you do hurry up and move to the far right side of the map, you can get to E3 and get the Hammerhead of 4 before you do start seeing an overwhelming number of enemies coming your way. And there is a way to cheese this mission. This is why this is considered an honorable mention and not on the list. See, your heroes are obviously very powerful, and really Ajax and Regolith carry you through the combat section of this particular mission. But just look at the number of enemy units that are coming over here. That is a lot of trolls. That is a lot of mountain giants, some fire giants, jarls. Yeah, and never mind the fact that there's a ton of enemy troops in this mission in general that you may want to deal with. But here's how you deal with the objective here. You have the Dwarven Gold Mine ability, because you're worshipping Thor. Makes sense when you're trying to get his, hammer being repaired. So you do worship Thor. Now, Thor has a nice ability. His Age 1 ability, his Archaic Age ability, gives you the ability of putting a Dwarven Gold Mine anywhere on the map. I mean, there are some, obviously, terrain issues that you're going to encounter, but since God powers can be recast in this particular, in any mission really, and in skirmish, you do have the ability of just putting down some gold mines to block the enemy's path. And since the enemy only comes down through one particular path, which is annoyingly close to where each respawns with the Hammerhead, you can actually stop Gargarensis' reinforcements. That's what I ended up doing in this particular mission after spending over half an hour just trying to survive the waves. I realized that trying to clear a map, like I had gotten my heroes to the far right by literally bypassing a portion of the enemy army, but trying to get my heroes, trying to get that Hammerhead, trying to get everyone back, and also doing the bonus objective. Yeah, you can do this mission, but damn, that is a lot of stuff to tackle. So yeah, you can use the Dwarven Gold Mine and it will help you out. Or else you'll be dealing with a lot of this throughout the rest of the mission. At number 5, it is the Good Advice mission where Arcantos is given a dream by Athena as a warning. I'm talking about the second part of the mission, the part where Arcantos is dreaming that he's part of Gargarensis' army and his objective is to sack Atlantis. You might think this mission is easy, a cakewalk really. You start with a massive army of Hydras, Minotaurs, Cyclops, Manticores. You have the powerhouses that are Gargarensis and Kamos at your disposal, especially Gargarensis, who has a good amount of HP regeneration in combat, so you can resist a lot of damage. So you might think this mission is easy, especially with the fact that you do start in H4. You do start with the town center already built. You can also get another one fairly quickly. I decided not to do so here because the AI has a tendency of pumping out an earthquake and sending siege engines very quickly, so I kind of want to keep it alive. over there. But between the relics, the massive army of myth units, the resources that are readily available, the power of your heroes, you might think that this would be easy. Well, you would be wrong, because this mission is absolutely brutal. Every single attack wave contains fully upgraded heroes, myth units, and a ton of cavalry. Every single attack wave contains siege. Every single attack wave contains at least one hero, either Achilles, Atlanta, or Hippolyta. So all those lovely myth units are just gonna be obliterated by the vast swarms of centaurs and heroes that are gonna come your way. Also, the enemy brings siege, so building any fortifications here is a lost cause, because fully upgraded siege will tear through your base even if you fully upgrade the defenses of your base. So building walls, building fortresses on the front line is not gonna cut it. All those wonderful myth units, they're gonna be obliterated. And while Gargarensis is strong, and so are your other heroes, and the relics do give you a significant level of power, between the siege, the cavalry, the centaurs, and the heroes, you're gonna have a hell of a time with this one. It took me longer than it should have for me to realize that the only way I was gonna win this mission was if I started getting fully upgraded hoplites, champion hoplites, which you don't start with, by the way. Getting champion hoplites to at least eliminate the enemy cavalry, the Podromi and the Hypias, so that my heroes could deal with enemy myth units. And yes, I did end up losing a lot of units. I ended up on the brink. I lost my structures multiple times. I lost the initial town center several times, that the one you get for free. And the worst part about this is, you might think, okay, there's choke points, why don't you use them? Well, the problem with that, one, siege will obliterate you in those choke points if you try to build fortifications, and there's a particular tendency on this map for siege, or maps in general for enemy siege, in particular the Greek catapults, to start to withdraw towards the enemy base if you're engaging them in melee. They won't withdraw fully, of course, but they will withdraw within the range of the enemy lightning towers that will obliterate masses of units, especially if you have a big-ass army of myth units that you're trying to send their way. That is a problem. So you're kind of forced to build your base on the western side of the map and try not letting your heroes or your units to actually pursue the enemy siege, because otherwise you might lose them. And it gets really ugly really quickly. Yeah, this was fairly brutal. And keep in mind, this is just number 5 on this list. What could be worse? Oh, there is a lot worse than this. I mean, just a bit of a tip. The key to winning this mission is to, get those hoplites. Eventually get Hades's elite archers, which are expensive, so you can't just pump them out from the beginning, and they do require a fortress. But eventually get those to help you attack, get your own siege equipment, and some myth units in support. Though keep in mind, you're probably going to lose a lot of myth units regardless of what you do in this mission, because fully upgraded heroes on the Greek side are no joke. And you need siege, range siege, to deal with enemy statues, because if you try and attack them directly, you might destroy them. With a massive army, you probably will lose that massive army in the process as well. Fun times, really fun times. At number 4, it is A Place in My Dreams, the final mission of the Fall of the Trident campaign. This one sees you fighting against not 1, not 2, but I think very easily 4 enemy bases. Now, they won't all attack at once, but if you don't start dealing with the minor outlying bases that Gargarensis has, you're probably going to be dealing with several attacks at the same time, which becomes a problem real quickly. Even when you do eliminate some of the minor bases and reduce the attacks from said places, you're still going to be attacked by Polyphemus and Atlanta. Oh yes, this one is quite very interesting. I mean, Atlanta was bad enough in the previous mission I mentioned. Here you get to deal with Hippolyta, Atlanta, and the tier 4 hero that Poseidon has, which is Polyphemus. You do get the Sign of Osiris, and oh boy, does the Sign of Osiris put in some work in the Fall of the Trident campaign. Every mission you can get one, you want to get one, because he's really powerful, and since you can reuse the ability, it is strong. Here you only have one, you can't heal him, sadly, though I think people have mentioned you can heal him in structures. But on one hand, you're forced to go around the map dealing with these minor bases, because if you don't, you're going to get overwhelmed. And while you do start with Egyptian and Norse allies that do provide you some free mythical units, Frost Giants, Mountain Giants, Anubites, Considering the fact you're dealing with fully upgraded enemies, this is gonna be tricky. Your allies are actually more useful in this one, but they're basically using only tier 2 units to defend their bases and maybe launching supporting attacks to help you out. Also, losing the temple in North space like that is a surefire way to stop getting mountain giants and frost giants, which, yeah, means that all those free units that you're getting are gonna stop very quickly. Also, there was a healing spring in the original mission, which you don't have in this one. The Egyptians can heal you until they get destroyed by Gargarensis, but yeah, it is something of a problem, especially considering the objective of this mission, which is to get to age 4 and then build a Wanderer, which is ridiculously expensive and takes many, many minutes to build, even if you task tons of villagers to do so. You can try and cheese this with defensive, like literally you can win the mission if you only manage to build that Wanderer, but that Wanderer is really expensive, you'll get attacked by a lot, and yeah, the chances of survival are low. You could abandon your initial starting position to go on the far eastern side to build a base there, collect the resources, and have a far more defensible location. But geez, the amount of stuff that's available in this mission. For what it is worth, once you do build up, and if you do overcome the outlying enemy bases and get some of those vaults, and use some of the meteors you get from destroying temples of Poseidon, you will be able to eventually overcome virtually all the enemies on this mission. But it is a hell of an early game situation for this one, and it is really about that early game aggression. You don't quite get attacked by fully upgraded units right from the start, but you know those are coming, and you know the heroes are coming, and you know your allies are not going to last forever. So you're in a race against time on this one. At number 3, it is All Is Not Lost. The final mission in the north section of the campaign. And oh my, this one is a doozy. You have 10 minutes to prepare a defense of a base you're given, with tons of resources to last you for the entire mission. Gold, food, wood, you name it. And also has already a significant number of structures available in it. Problem is, those 10 minutes aren't quite enough to build a full working economy. And while you can delay this for some time by going with a village center, getting a lot of villagers, building economy, you're going to be attacked from 3 different directions by a truckload of enemies who are a mix of Greek and Norse units. On top of that, you'll also have the enemy at one point using an underworld passage against you. You worship 4, and I did use the gold mine cheese to block off one of the entrances, not fully successfully, because it's actually harder to pull off in most maps. You can make it work in certain maps, but in this one it didn't quite fully work out, though I did prevent the enemy from using one particular axis of advance against me. But yeah, this mission, let's just say, it took me several attempts, and the only reason I succeeded in this particular attempt is I had started training a lot of villagers to get a massive economy. My army got overwhelmed, and then I got to H4 and unleashed Ragnarok. And even then, you still have 20 minutes after the 10-minute timer that gives you time to prepare. You can probably get like 15, maybe 20 minutes to prepare. But even after that timer expires, surviving for 20 minutes, even with Ragnarok at your disposal, ends up being brutal. Very brutal. You get attacked on multiple directions, you get attacked by hordes of enemies. And while the heroes of Ragnarok are really powerful units, especially with 4's unique armory upgrades, this was still brutal. When it takes me a lot of villagers to be able to stop turning into heroes of Ragnarok, to be able to stop the initial enemy assault waves, and then having to survive against the rest, and after that getting an army that's not really up to the task from Odysseus to go deal with Gargarensis, who is spamming his units next to him, or rather Kempsit faking as Gargarensis. Yeah, this is quite brutal. There are ways to make it easier. You can optimize your build, you can buy for time initially, but yeah, this is pretty damn brutal. I had to use Ragnarok twice in this mission, and suffice to say, a single use of Ragnarok might be enough to win you the game in a lot of scenarios. But in this case, it took me two times Ragnarok, surviving for a very, very long time against the enemy, and during their attacks, and using the gold mine blocking cheese in order to survive. Keep in mind, you have some really powerful heroes available here like Regenleaf, who's very good at healing in combat, and of course Ajax, who's very durable and does a ton of damage. But yeah, this was not a cakewalk. But it is manageable if you overcome those initial attack waves and build up your defenses. If you don't, you'll just be overwhelmed very, very quickly. That's the question here. At the very least, you can get trolls, so you can use those against the enemy, but yeah, this is going to come down, I think, to Ragnarok for a lot of people. And number 2, it is the Dwarven Forge mission. Now, before I had started playing Retold, this was the one mission I was fairly apprehensive about, because I knew how hard it was in the original, because I had played the original just before Retold came out. But as I played Retold, I started getting a bit confident, especially as the first mission in the Northlands actually ended up being pretty damn easy. But I was fairly mistaken in thinking that this mission, where you do have more heroes, where you do go all the way up to age 4, and you have the ability of getting all the wonderful upgrades from Force Armory, would make this easy. I was very, very wrong on this subject. See, the problem in this mission is, while your heroes are strong, your economy is strong, you have a lot of upgrades, you have infinite gold, so you will never run out of money. The issue isn't so much defending as it is attacking. The enemy that you're dealing with worships Loki, so that means they can instantly construct units from temples. A single temple can produce an army almost near instantaneously. Now, for the sake of skirmish and for the sake of multiplayer, this isn't necessarily so much of an issue to deal with, because, yeah, limited resources will prevent you from just spamming units as Loki. But here, because the AI does have infinite units, it becomes a freaking nightmare. In particular, not because of the giants. Those are actually the easy part, yeah. We're supposed to drive the giants from the forge. Well, that's not really so much the problem as it is dealing with the ballistae, which can shred your entire army, or rather your foot soldiers, and the trolls, who can also shred your entire army. Now, trolls are a relatively weak unit in terms of their durability, but they were buffed in Retold to have significantly more damage, in particular with their special rock throw ability that they have gained. Combine this with the instant construction, it means that when you're attacking an enemy base, specifically the one enemy base to the west of the forge that you probably want to eliminate before going for the forge itself, for pretty clear reasons, to reduce the enemy recruitment capability, secure another town center, having a bigger army, becomes a freaking nightmare, especially when the AI does flank you from their main base, from their main base units that are coming from the forge itself. And yeah, dealing with a ton of trolls is not really a fun, like, your heroes get killed, your units get killed, like, pretty much instantly. You can see how easily those Jarls die to the troll special attacks. And the masses of Herseers and ranged skirmisher heroes are not going to be able to get the job done. So you need to create a massive army, have a really strong economy, and then be ready to replace any army that you send, because they will be killed very quickly. And even when you do kill the entire enemy army, they will just summon another one and another one. I probably could have made this easier for myself by beelining for the temple right there, but geez, this was something else of a mission. Once you do deal with those 2 temples over there, it does become easier, and once you do recover the forge, actually destroying the main enemy base is actually cakewalk. Like, the original intent of this mission is to have the hard part after recovering the forge, where you're supposed to survive against the giant attacks. Honestly, if you recover the forge and deal with the western enemy base, it's not that brutal to destroy the enemy, especially if you do summon Ragnarok against the enemy and use those heroes of Ragnarok to swarm the enemy base once you have a full supply of troops, besides those heroes, of course. But yeah, getting to that point is a bloodbath of a mission. Could have made that easier for myself, I admit. Mistakes were made, but damn, that is a lot of myth units. And number 1, and by far the most difficult mission in the campaigns of Age of Mythology Retold, is A Long Way From Home, Chiron's Egyptian mission, where Chiron is trying to recover the head of Osiris. And just look at what's happening on screen. War elephants, siege towers, scarabs, scorpion men, towers, priests. The problem here in this mission is there is no easy way to counter the enemy army. If you build priests to deal with enemy myth units, then, well, the enemy siege towers, which are actually quite good against infantry units in general, including priests, will devastate you. If you try and spam more elephants, well, they have an infinite economy and you don't. If you try and build infantry, the enemy will destroy you. If you try and build myth units, you'll lose. So it ended up being a slog of a mission that I only managed to win because the Sign of Osiris is a really powerful tool. In the original campaign, I almost never used the Sign of Osiris because you only got one and he couldn't heal. But now, because the ability can be reused, well, that ended up giving me the power boost that I needed in order to succeed. Or rather, I was willing to go with Osiris far more than in the original because, yeah, I figured, you know what, even if I lose my Sign of Osiris, I can at least build a new one. And it took a combination of spamming war elephants, siege, and various units that I could get my hands on in order to overcome the enemy. But the problem is you get attacked by multiple sides. Your objective is to take down the tree in the middle of the map, which requires your villagers to go there. And since the AI has a tendency of targeting villagers, you at least need to clear the center area, which is brutal considering the number of the number of units that are coming your way damn near constantly. Also, it's worth pointing out that although you do get some Norse units at the beginning of this mission, they will not be living for very long. And you don't really start with any resources next to your base, so you have to go out there and expand. And while you do gain some gold early on thanks to the mummy tombs that are around the map, but this is still a bloodbath of a mission. In other missions, the things that do help you out are the heroes you have. But Chiron against war elephants, let's just say that leaves quite a bit to be desired. Chiron against siege towers also leaves quite a bit to be desired. I literally had to build catapults to deal with the enemy siege towers because they're the only reliable way I had of killing them before they became a problem. So yeah, lots and lots of issues over here in this particular mission. Near infinite swarm of enemies, difficulty being able to rush from the early game, difficult to get to the tree of Osiris, to the head of Osiris, and even if you did get to the tree to start trying to chop it down, great, the enemy is just gonna get a significant spawn of free units, Anubite, Scorpion Men in particular, and also use god powers in the middle to try and stop you. Eventually, I was able to make it through to just get enough of a critical mass of units to succeed after killing probably hundreds of war elephants. But yeah, like removing the powerful heroes you do have in other missions and giving you Chiron to deal with. Like Amon-Ra is probably weaker than Chiron, but here's the thing, her mission is substantially easier. Chiron really went and had a hell of a time. It probably would have been better had I been able to train Norse units in this mission, but sadly, I could not. And that would be it, ladies and gentlemen. Costin signing out. Let me know what you guys think about this and what other missions have given you trouble. I did try and make this list under the idea, okay, which missions are hard and which missions can't be cheesed, or which missions, if you know them, still are going to be difficult in this one. Like, I knew what I was getting into in this one, but there were still tons and tons of enemy units.